Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 11th episode of the Morning Tip-Off. This morning, thank you. Brought to you by Basketball News. This morning, I have some more Basketball News family. This is the wrong side. I'm putting my hands this way. That's my 8 o'clock alarm. So this morning, we've got some Basketball News family. We've got Clips from the Follow Through with Clips and Drew.
Good morning.
Clips. Good morning. You are out on the West Coast, so you were up early to do this.
It's a 4:30 wake-up call, but I would not rather be doing anything else at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning than talking basketball with you. So I'm stoked to be here.
Wait till you hear my Clippers questions.
Oh, no.
I'm joking. All right. So before we get into anything, I just want to bring you the news and notes of the NBA. And of course, we're waking up to, well, some of you guys may be waking up to sad news. But yesterday we found out that Sekou Smith, who is a longtime NBA journalist, writer, reporter, analyst, passed away due to COVID. He was only 48. Adam Silver put out a statement this morning about his passing, and I have it here. So he said, the NBA mourns the passing of Sekou Smith, a beloved member of the NBA family. Sekou was one of the most affable and dedicated reporters in the NBA and a terrific friend to so many across the league. He covered the game for more than 2 decades, including the past 11 years with Turner Sports, where he shared his full range of skills, an engaging television analyst, podcast host, and writer. Sekou's love of basketball was clear to everyone who knew him, and it always shined through in his work. Our heartfelt condolences go to his wife, Heather, and their children, Gabriel, Riley, and Cameron. And if anyone was on the timeline yesterday, it was just filled with reporters speaking about Sekou, and every one of them just had a great story about him, you know, being like, I was a new guy, and he came and showed love and, like, said that he loved my writing, or just reached out, like, and that's, I mean, that's just a sign of a great person. So the NBA lost somebody, and I don't know if you have anything.
I didn't hear, everything I've ever heard about him has been nothing but good stuff. And, Jared Rudolph, a friend of ours, had a really good post talking about how he helped him out at a young age. I've heard nothing bad about him. So I was shocked yesterday. Very sad for the NBA family, definitely.
Guys, wear a mask, please.
Yes.
And, like, socially distance and take this thing seriously, because
just wear a mask.
No wear a mask. 48 years old, not old at all. This idea that it only affects the oldest among us is nonsensical. And on to some more positive news. Caris Levert had successful surgery, which was really great to find out. So it's strange that a trade can make such an impact on your life, but it was so grateful that they caught it when they did, and they were able to remove it. Successful surgery, and he will apparently need no further treatment, which is the best thing that you can hear.
What if he didn't get traded? What if that did not happen? And my whole question about that was, why aren't they doing physicals before they get traded? Shouldn't that be part of, like, I thought that's how the protocol works. Like, you take a physical, then we want you, then you get traded.
But isn't that kind of it? Because they did have to now add more picks. It was like the trade didn't get finalized.
Okay.
Until the physicals went through, because teams can, like, axe a trade if they find out you're hiding some lingering issues.
That's great news, though.
Yeah, for sure. Now on to some more basketball news this morning. Apparently, according to Shams Charania, the Pelicans of The Athletic, the Pelicans are open to trading Lonzo and JJ. I'm sure you love JJ. You recognize what he can do for a contender. Do you think that he gets? I think JJ definitely gets moved. Do you think Lonzo gets moves as well?
I think they're pushing hard for it. I mean, there've been talks about the Clippers. The Knicks are looking like a potential spot for them too. But the way Austin Rivers is playing right now,
Clippers.
That's what I mean. That's yeah. I don't want Lonzo or JJ. I mean, I love JJ and he can contribute to our team, but yeah, I definitely think they're both going to move, and I think the whole franchise is going to move at some point. But yeah, I think Lonzo. I think you can get a nice piece for Lonzo.
The whole franchise is going to move at
some point. Yeah, I do. That's a football town. They should go to Seattle.
Okay.
That's my take.
As long as you're not touching a Raptors team, I'm cool with it.
No. Raptors,
but yeah,
will stay in Tampa. It's okay.
So now we're doing a solo show with myself here this morning. I'm kidding. We're bringing you back despite that. No, nobody would. Okay, so and the Pelicans have been so weird because they hired this new coach. They're literally disastrous. They cannot hit a shot unless they're playing the Raptors, where Eric Bledsoe turns into JJ Redick. Apparently, he hit multiple buzzer beater shots in like to end quarters against the Raptors in a game from deep, and outside of that, they just haven't been able to win a game. They haven't been able to make a shot. They're 2 of 8 in their last 10.
It's pretty sad, and their young core is so good. Like if you think about it, Lonzo and Zion and Brandon Ingram, and they have such a good core, but they're just not winning games, and they're really well coached right now too. And like you said, if Bledsoe's the guy hitting your big shots, like that's good. That's an issue, you know.
He can only do it apparently against the Raptors, not in the playoffs. We've seen that a couple of times, but I don't
I heard a good stat.
don't get that.
I heard a good stat about Zion because he's like the most effective person around the rim, like highest field goal percentage right now in the NBA, like around the rim. But you remember his opening day game, his first game as a rookie where he hit those 4 threes.
Where he hit all those threes? Yeah.
Yeah. He's only had 2 threes since that game. So that's a crazy stat. So he's not taking the shots, or he's not, fun stat to have though.
So he hit 4 in his first game and is taking 2 since?
He's only hit 2 since that game.
I made 2 since, yeah.
Right. Wild.
That is wild.
No, but Ingram is so good, and Zion's so good. Like they have such a good core, but
Ingram is so good.
Very talented.
He's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, he's good.
I think Raptor fans kind of sometimes, just because of his builds, compare him a little bit to like a Siakam. But like there's a smoothness to his game that like Siakam is just very herky-jerky in the same way, where he just doesn't move with the ball as well. And Ingram has it, and it's probably more comparable to like a KD. Yeah, I was gonna say he's more comparable to KD with that like silkiness to his game, as opposed to like maybe like I guess Giannis kind of has the herky-jerkiness that Siakam plays with. But anyways, I'm not slandering Siakam. Siakam, we love you. You're amazing. All right, so some other news. Some other person that you guys are probably interested in, according to Shams Charania, is D Rose. What is that about?
They've been talking about that for a while, and I was on the D Rose train last year during buyout time.
Okay.
I was definitely on the train for D Rose. I don't want to add anybody, to be honest with you. I'm perfectly fine with where the Clippers are at. For whatever reason, there's a huge narrative that we need some playmaking point guard, and I don't necessarily think that we do, because we have plenty of playmakers on the team with Paul George and Kawhi. And like,
I was going to ask about that.
I'm just if the way Lou Williams is playing right now is atrocious, okay? And Clipper fans, for whatever reason, want to get rid of Lou so fast, and people forget just how much this guy has brought to our organization over the past few years and how good he has been. But he has been trash. Last night was trash, and I kept hoping he was going to hit a shot. He was 3 for 13, if I'm not mistaken. And if it's Lou Williams for D Rose straight up, like it's hard to not do that. But I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. And if it's Lou Williams for D Rose and we get D Rose and lose Lou, I'll be okay with it, but I don't want it to happen. But D Rose also deserves to go somewhere. He deserves to go somewhere and compete for a championship,
Sure. If you say so.
What do you think? What do you think about it?
I'm just like not. If I think that a team needs more playmaking, and I don't, and like that's one of the things I want to talk to you about when we get into the Clippers segment, is just like last year, it was very clear that they needed a point guard. It was very clear that like playmaking, at least to me, was what they needed. Now it's like, okay, it's by committee. They don't actually need the guy. I think Paul George and Kawhi both have their career high in assists right now. I have to imagine they both do. They're both averaging over 5 assists per game, which I don't think I've ever really seen any of them do. So, I mean, they're freeing guys up, and you guys are hitting shots at an insane rate right now. I want to talk about that Clippers offense. I'm not going to compliment the Clippers any longer than I need to, so let's actually get into some games right now. So some of the games that happened last night, a real stinker that I did not stay to watch. I turned it on, turned it off. It was Wizards Rockets. There was no need to watch it. Both teams are very sad. They're both in very sad spaces right now. Did you catch any of that game?
I did. And, the only fun thing was like the bickering between Westbrook and Wall. Like that was kind of fun. And Westbrook isn't even like low key about it. Like he's you can see it on his face when he's pissed off, right?
Is he low key about anything?
Nothing. Like he keeps nothing under the wraps. John Wall and Beal seeing each other was kind of cool because they've been boys for a long time. But look, Washington's not working out. This whole thing is not working out. They're 1-8 when Russ plays. Great stat from last night is Westbrook has 163 points on the season on
163 shots. I saw that. I have that in my notes here too. That's insane.
It's ridiculous. And it's so sad because Beal is so nice, right? Like, he is so nice. And
he needs to go to a contender. I don't care where Rose goes, but Beal needs to
go to a contender. He does need to go. And I was high on them going into the season. High meaning, like, I think they're going to make the playoffs with Bertrand and Beal and Westbrook, like, on paper.
As an 8 seed, right? Yeah. Though, did you actually? Okay, because I didn't see them cracking the top 7 in the East.
Right, or the buy-in. Like, I was just saying they're going to make it to the playoffs. They have to. Like, Westbrook and Beal are too good for this, but it's just not working, And I think that a trade. OKC keeps standing out in my head for Beal because they have all these picks and stuff, and I'm just like, OKC, Beal and Shea would be so nice together. I think
Shea's been phenomenal. I have some questions about Shea for you right now because, like, does it hurt a little bit at all, or is just the success of the Clippers right now? It's just like, all right.
It stings so much. And Presti just had our backs against the wall, knowing exactly what we needed. And we had the deal done. Like, the deal was done without Shea. And then just all of a sudden, there's like, you know what? You really want Paul George? You got to throw in the kid.
I can't see. That's always been my biggest thing is, like, Kawhi was going to the Clippers. I think that he was going to the Clippers regardless of what they did. And I think that the Thunder were going to trade Paul George there. Regardless, like, they were going this route. They got everything else. They didn't need Shea.
They definitely didn't. But I think that was just Presti knowing that we were against the ropes and like, okay, we already squeezed 9 picks out of him. Let's see if we can get the kid, the really good rook. And yeah, so that Imman, that's the playmaking point. That's the playmaking point guard that everybody wishes we had right now.
I'm so glad you don't have my Canadian son. I would feel so torn and conflicted. I already feel torn and conflicted because I love Serge Ibaka and I love Kawhi Leonard, but I do not like the Clippers. I'm so sorry. Lawrence Frank, you literally stalked this man for a whole year. You didn't know he was going to go with and you didn't need to give up everything they gave up. All right, whatever. Well, let's talk about another team that gave up a lot of things because I have some questions for you about the Nets. Okay. I listened to your podcast recently and you had some strong takes. We'll get into that in a bit. All right, some other games that happened. Knicks versus Jazz, which looked weird. So I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch this game. I was kind of just like flipping through, checking it out every so often. And it looked like Austin Rivers was super hot in the first half and then just wasn't there. And the Knicks scored 13 points in the fourth quarter. Austin Rivers didn't score a point in the second half. And the Jazz just got hot. Is that the story of the game?
That's the story, and I'm team Austin Rivers all day too. Like, I really like Austin. People hate this guy so much, and I don't understand why. He was extreme. He was 10 for 10 in the first half, and yeah, he came out cold. Look, Utah's really good, winning 8 in a row. They're really well coached. Conley looks good. Obviously, Donovan, Royce O'Neal, like, these guys are playing really good basketball, and winning 8 in a row is huge. They're second in the West right now, if I'm not mistaken, since the Clippers lost last night. I think they need to be taken seriously. We don't talk about Utah enough at all.
Yep, I'm glad that you mentioned that. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But before we do, I want to get into our coffee break segment. That's when we just take a break. You got your mug there. Love it. So our coffee break segment is where we just take a break from talking about basketball and really just focus on the guests for today.
Oh.
So wanted to ask you, I'm going to put the solo cam on you here. No one needs to see me.
Oh, boy.
All right. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the follow through with Clips and Drew. I love the show. It's a really great podcast. I think people should check it out. I know a lot of the people who follow me and are watching this right now are, ooh, I'm so sorry. This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It's never going to happen. Get rid of it.
Your mom will never talk to me again, ever, if that happens.
I literally would take 3 months off to mourn. It would be the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Yeah, so I love the idea for the podcast of like a Lakers fan and a Clippers fan coming together, talking hoops. How did it start? How did you get into podcasting? And then we'll get into the creation of the follow through.
Podcasting was, so I gained my following through making basketball videos. like my videos were viral. I used to record myself at the gym, and people really started to follow me because of how I played basketball. And obviously everybody knew me. Clipper Nation has known me for a long time. I was a ball boy for the Clippers. And in the beginning of like Instagram, a lot of my posts would be Clippers. And then it started going to this big basketball thing. And as I got older, I knew that there was going to have to be some kind of pivot to, if I wanted to, like, basketball is my passion, and if I wanted to keep this going for a career, I knew I had to do something. I knew I could talk basketball. I had a decent following, so hopefully it would transition. And Drew is a guy that I played basketball with for a long time here in San Clemente, and he has a great personality, knows basketball very well, played for a long time. And it started to just, everybody kept telling us to start doing a podcast. We had a podcast studio with Golden Net Basketball, so we had people that would record us and edit the videos and do all that stuff. But it took a lot of time. And Drew and I, we've been doing, this is our 4th year. We're over 200 episodes. But we decided that we could probably do this on our own. Drew does our editing. I do all the social and all that other stuff to build engagement and marketing and all that. And it's really turned into a huge thing. Like, we're in 15 different countries. We have fans all over the world. And I think it's because our take on basketball isn't so analytic. It's not fantasy. It's really two hoopers that know the game really well and watch a lot of basketball. And I think the dynamic of, we're from Los Angeles. Drew is diehard Laker. I'm a diehard Clipper fan. And it just works. And and we didn't want it to be just Clipper Laker. Obviously, we wanted to talk all about basketball and the NBA as a whole. But people really love to hate the Clippers. So people love it when the Clippers lose, and they want to hear my takes on everything. But it's been a success, and we have a long way to go. And I think being a part of the Basketball News family too, and being able to work with all these different people like yourself, Dishes and Dimes, and Alex Kennedy and Etan, and all these people is really opening doors for us.
And you talked a little bit about clips of your game. Oh, I said clips. That's funny. Who would you say that you play like, or how would you describe your style if you can compare yourself to someone in the league?
I would say I'd be like Jamal Crawford, minus I'm real shaky with the rock. I got great handles.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I've seen clips on Instagram. You got a great handle.
Yeah, I have a patented move that nobody does. It's called the glitch, and that was my first video that went super viral. And it's funny because people from like Turkey and like South America, they'll send me videos of them trying to do the glitch. So, I love to pass the rock. I may not be the great shooter like Jamal was, but I can definitely handle the rock.
That's dope. So the one game that I purposely left off was the one that you were probably most interested in. That was one, positive outcome. Clippers lost to the Atlanta Hawks. But of course, you got nothing to really take away out of this game, or maybe there is something to take away out of this game, just looking at the rest of the roster outside of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and seeing how they stand out in a game like that. You specifically mentioned Lou Will at the top. Because as someone who's watched Lou Will on the team, I think some of the moments where he shined is when, you give him the ball and he has a high usage and you just ask him to put up shots and he's a bucket getter. We didn't see that in this last game. We saw Trae Young do it. So I wanted to ask you, what'd you take away from that game looking at the rest of the Clippers roster?
This was actually I was most excited to watch this game. I mean, this season has been really exciting, but I've been adamant about saying that, like, COVID's going to affect every single team in the NBA. Whoever deals with COVID the best is going to succeed in the NBA. We've seen it with, Jason Tatum getting hot and then he's out for 2 weeks. I mean, the Memphis Grizzlies aren't playing games. And the Clippers and Lakers
a week off or 2 weeks off of basketball.
Yeah, they had to take a whole 2 weeks off. And I think it's been interesting because the Lakers and Clippers both have been playing COVID very well. Nobody's really gotten sick with the Lakers, and Kawhi and Paul both came up negative last night. It was all from tracing. But so I wanted to see, this is where you see how your bench players, your young players play, and then how you're going to be coached. I want to see how Ty Lue's going to coach this game. And when you look at the starting lineup last night, it's Luke Kennard, it's Terrence Mann, Nick Ibaka, and I'm forgetting one, and Reggie Jackson, right? And so when you look at that lineup, you're like, okay, well, who's going to get us buckets? And Reggie stepped up. And this is a guy that 2 weeks ago, Ty had to sit down and say, hey, Reggie, like, we're probably not going to have you in the rotation for a while. Reggie was taking a seat to Lou and to Luke Kennard. And supposedly Reggie took it like a champ and said, I'm perfect. That's fine whenever you need me. And then lo and behold, you're starting back-to-back games for us. And Reggie Jackson's a starting point guard in the NBA. He can start for any team in the NBA, I think. I was, having Serge in your lineup, and if you want to talk about Serge later, we can, but he has been such a shining star on this team. Having don't be sad, no tears on this episode, no tears. I wanted to see how the Clippers were going to come out and play. And we played really, really well. Trae Young got hot in the fourth. I think the one thing we lack or we're having a problem with is defense, defending the three. And we're going to get better at that. And it's just crazy because the whole offense runs through Paul and Kawhi. And they, you mentioned earlier about how the open shots we're getting. We're shooting so well from three. And it's wild. And the reason is, here's a stat for you. So, I don't know who gets these stats. I don't know if it's Synergy or who's the one getting paid for this stat. But out of all the three-pointers we've shot this season, 84% of them have been classified as wide open. So that's why that's Pat Beverly's shooting 40%. Luke Kennard was shooting at 50% at one point. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George
shooting over 40. Paul George is nearly shooting 50% on like 8 attempts a game. It's insane right now. And that comes from better playmaking. We saw that when the Raptors traded for Marc Gasol, that they became the best three-point shooting team in the league because their shots were fairly open. We talk about that when we talk about that Raptors Bucks series and how everybody talks about unsustainable shooting. Fred VanVleet was open for nearly all of those, and he's a 40% career three-point shooter. You give him open shots, he's going to knock them down. And that's exactly what we're seeing from the Clippers this year, which makes them entirely scary to me. And I hate it, every little bit of it, but we'll get into that.
Well, I think you really do hate the Clippers. I didn't know this was going to be a bash.
I'm joking. Half of it is like, it's jokes. I'm being facetious. Raptor fans are supposed to hate the Clippers. Specifically, Lawrence Frank, I think, is who are ours towards. Here's the thing. I'm going to be honest. I don't hate Paul George. I feel like it's a thing to hate Paul George. I think he has one of the most aesthetically pleasing games in the NBA. I think it's hard to watch the guy play and hate him. I've watched him in close playoff series against the Raptors where I was like, this LeBronto didn't exist at the time. It was like Paul Georgeanto. I don't know how you want to throw it. Paul George is incredible, and he's having an incredible season right now where he should probably be in the MVP consideration. But then Kawhi comes out this last week and a half and looks like he should be the MVP. I personally don't think a Clipper is going to get it because I just think that I feel like it's going to be LeBron. I'm going to talk to you. I have some questions. I just think that the Lakers have all of the shine. I also think that this year's MVP is always a little bit predicated on last year's playoffs. That storyline builds into the following season because it's not included at all in last year's MVP. So that obviously we saw Giannis fail, but what the Bucks did last year was historic. So if the Clippers are on a historic pace, that changes everything. But the Clippers and Bucks are kind of in this space now where people have thrown out the regular season for both of them. In a way, for the Bucks, it's because we've seen you do it before and we don't care. And then for the Clippers, we haven't seen you do it before, but we also just don't care. I think so. So I'm interested to see how that narrative shifts and changes as the season moves along because it's hard to ignore what the Clippers are doing right now. They have the best offense in the league and the shots that they're getting are insane. I don't think the shooting is sustainable. I don't think as a team you're going to be shooting well over 40%. But for right now, it's incredible. Also, I want to give a shout out to John Collins because he had an 11-11 double-double, and we love that here.
I like him, and he didn't sign his extension, I think.
No, he didn't.
He's going to try to get out of there, too. Right.
He didn't sign his extension. Yeah, sorry.
Back to what you're saying about Paul George really quick, who's definitely shooting the leather off the ball. And this is what sucks when you talk basketball with people that don't, all they'll say, if you mention Paul George, they'll be like, oh, well, let me see it in the playoffs. Do you see what he's doing right now? Can we give flowers right now a little bit? This guy is a top 10 NBA player right now. He's calling it revenge season from what happened in the bubble last year. And yes, he was really depressed. He came out and said, I was depressed in the bubble. I didn't play well. The chemistry was bad. And to come out and look as good as he has this year, can we just give him his props? Because he, like you said, he is so fun to watch. Everything about his game is nice. Everything. He can pick apart your defense. He does it. He can hit shots that normal people cannot hit. The way he's using his body, and now that he's healthy, is amazing. And he just effortless is like the first thing I see when it comes to his game. And the fact that we have
the perfect way to put it.
Effortless. He's so good. And I hate talking basketball with people when all they say, well, let's see it in the playoffs. And they have a point too. Okay. We had a meltdown.
That's where we're going to get. And to me, I always think that that's flawed because there's always extenuating circumstances between let's see it in the playoffs. It's the same thing for Giannis. I was talking to someone about this yesterday where they're like, well, let's see it for Giannis because they're just going to put a wall up. And I'm like, who put the wall? It was Kawhi Leonard and Marc Gasol, two former defensive players of the year. And then last year, Jimmy and Bam. How many? We're talking about some of the best defenders in basketball. It's not like, Brook Lopez. Oh, Brook Lopez is on their team. It's not like DeAndre Jordan is out there just going to stop him from as a rim protector. And Nekias and I talked about that Bucks Nets game and some things to take away, which is that's not sustainable. And not going to work in the playoffs for them.
Right.
So I have some more notes here from Clippers, Raptors. Something that I did put 50-point loss smiley face just because I'm gonna let that go. It's okay. We're gonna say good things.
No, don't let it go. I got something to say about it.
Oh, okay, go. Take the floor.
Well, again, this is it's funny because I did a podcast. I was on a show. Drew and I were both on a show 2 days ago. It's called Persona, and it's where the podcasters get interviewed by different people, right? And they since they knew we were Clippers and Lakers fans, they had the top questions for the Clippers and the top questions for the Lakers. And the first question was, how do you feel about the 50-point loss? And my first thing is like, dude, this is 3 weeks ago. Okay, first of all, it's a long time ago. And
hold on. It's one thing to say this was last season. 3 weeks ago is still part of the season.
Nah, look, I don't look into yes, they got their ass kicked. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this. I apologize. They got their butts kicked yesterday. I have a hard time not cussing, and I've done really well.
You've done great. I don't care.
Look, yeah, we got our butts kicked. It was 50-point loss. Kawhi didn't play. We hit nothing. They hit everything. Sometimes that happens in the NBA. I wish it wasn't 50 points, right? I'm just glad it happened early in the season, and we bounced back from that. Came back. I think we won 3 in a row. Then we lose, or 4 in a row, and then we lose to Golden State, right? We were up 20, and then they came back and beat us. We had a players-only meeting after that just to talk about it, and then we win 7 in a row after that, and then last night was our first loss since then. You're going to get your butts kicked. It's how you come back from it, and we came back and we look fine, dude. And what is Dallas doing right now? Dallas isn't even in the playoffs right now if the season ended right now. So I'm okay with it. I try to take value from losses. It's like last night. I want to take value from losing, and nothing is more humbling than losing by 50, okay?
I just realized that I was gonna interrupt you earlier, but if the Clippers trade for Derrick Rose, they're going to have Luke Kennard, Reggie Jackson, and Derrick Rose on the same
Pistons team. What the hell?
They're basically the Pistons, and you guys have the Pistons color scheme essentially. I mean, they're pretty Raptors-y. You got a lot of Raptor players, a lot of former Raptors on the teams, which a lot of Raptor fans think that, the Clippers copy and paste, and that's probably because Lawrence Frank did stock the team for an entire year to get Kawhi Leonard. It worked. But you know what? There is a lot. So I would be remiss. Raptor fans would kill me if I didn't talk about the Clippers just copying and pasting. You know that meme where someone's taking a test and the other person's just looking over their shoulder? That's exactly what the Clippers have done to the Toronto Raptors. It did not start or end with Kawhi Leonard. So you guys have something called In Pursuit. I want to ask about that. Have you watched it at all? Because that is open gym. The Raptors do it. I personally believe every team in the league should do it. It's some of the best stuff to watch. It has been done so well. The Raptors have been doing it since 2013, 2014, and I just can't believe that it's taken years for other teams to get on board because it's brilliant.
I haven't. I literally just heard, being the Clipper guy too, it just came to my attention yesterday. And I have no idea about it. weird, right? I had no
They
idea.
definitely copied and pasted from the Raptors. I'm taking that. Lawrence Frank was like, oh, they're following Kawhi with these cameras everywhere. It's like a reality show for the team. It's great. Like I've never watched In Pursuit. I have zero interest in watching In Pursuit, but it's something the Raptors have done since 2013, and they just like follow the guys and they like feature episodes about Lou Williams and
Look,
various
factors. If we're gonna copy and paste from anybody, I'd rather copy and paste from Toronto. Like
we don't like
with that.
it.
I'm perfectly fine with
We're
that. They're a great
interested.
organization.
We're not interested. Okay, so another copy and paste.
Right.
Bad matinees. We talked about it. 50-point loss. You guys suck at matinees. That's a very Raptor-esque thing to be terrible. The Raptors just lost their last matinee Sunday against the Pacers there. No, they won that, didn't they? They won the Sunday against the Pacers. Oh, the Raptors flipped the script on us. They lost Monday nights back-to-back in the evening. I threw that off, but the Raptors are terrible at matinees. The Clippers have been terrible in matinees as well this season.
We won on Sunday too, our Sunday matinee as well.
That's because you guys were on a 7-game winning streak and nothing was stopping you guys.
Oh, okay. I think
the NBA were copying us.
Like the NBA even gave us a couple 10 a.m. games. Like who plays at 10 a.m.? This is ridiculous.
That's insane. But you guys are on like the West Coast, so
yeah,
it's 10 a.m. Because I feel like when I feel like the Lakers must have played a game in Toronto at 1 p.m. on a Sunday, which would be your 10 a.m. So I feel like that's a thing that sometimes happens when they come to East. That's not, you would know because I don't pay attention to when it's starting on the West Coast. But the Raptors have a lot of like 1 p.m. games, and they're disasters. I don't know why the NBA does it. It's too early. All right. So who else have you guys stolen from us? Oh, Patrick Patterson and his bricking of 3-pointers, and just being a disaster on the team. That's a very Raptors-esque thing. I love Patrick Patterson. I'm totally kidding.
Pat, and he's not a disaster.
He's my favorite. No, he's been good. He's literally someone who Raptor fans despise for missing open threes. Here's the thing. Patrick Patterson was probably the third best Raptor for a good stretch of time behind Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan for some years here. He was phenomenal. He got hurt, came back. His shot was absolutely wonky, where he was not hitting anything. It was and because it led into the playoffs and it bled into the playoffs, he just started passing up open shots every time he had it, and he was the team's second best 3-point shooter, probably behind Kyle at the time. So it was just an onslaught of hate for him ever since, and he's now a Clipper, so we slander him. But honestly, I like him. I have nothing but actually Patrick Patterson said some things on Instagram that make me dislike him, but on the court, nothing but love for him. Lou Will. That's a very Raptors-esque person. You live and you die by the Lou Will. Live in the playoffs by the Lou Will. Live in the regular season by the Lou Will. Die in the playoffs by the Lou Will. Very Raptors-esque thing. The Ibaka Zubac, kind of similar, very different to the Raptors staggering of their centers last season before with the Marc Gasol. So basically, you guys are copying everything. What else do I have here? Oh, Batum. He had a baby, hit 4-4 from deep. Which is the baby bump that Fred VanVleet had, but then he went 1 for 5 in his last 2 games, so he just can't do it as well as Fred VanVleet. That's what I have in my notes here for the copy and paste.
Did VanVleet play on the same? I know you are so thorough, and I can't believe you went that deep as to the baby bump. Did
I literally did this 5 minutes before. This is not thorough. I was just like, I think I was listening to a pod and they were like, Batum had 4-4 from deep. I'm like, baby bump Batum, because I remember hearing that he had a baby.
Did VanVleet play the same day though? Imman,
it was in the playoffs. I don't think so, but not because there wasn't a game. He didn't miss a game because it was during the playoffs. It was during the conference finals. Okay. So he didn't miss a game, but I don't think it was on the same day.
Yeah, Batum had his at like 2 p.m. and was playing at 7:30. So
it's not like he pushed the baby out of him.
Oh my God, come on. You're right, but he was there for the birth. I get it. Okay, damn.
Like if he were a WNBA player, I'd be like, that's impressive. But right. I mean, you just stand in a hospital room. All right, so that is my Clippers Raptors copy and paste. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, we touched on it a little bit. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I think the Utah Jazz are for real. They are also shooting insane from deep. Mike Conley's looked phenomenal for them this season, which has been great. Their offense has changed in that they're taking a lot. I have a stat here. I'm literally looking for it. I had it this morning. A lot more threes than they normally do. I think they've like probably doubled their attempts this season. They shot 48 threes last night alone, which is not what you think of when you think of the Utah Jazz. So they've changed the way that they played, very similar to like the Indiana Pacers changing the way that they play. Although Indiana, new coach, not the same for Utah, but they're still doing it. And I think part of that is the improved play of Mike Conley. So you think they're for real? I think they're for real. How legit of a threat do you think they are to your Clippers?
I don't. I've never been really scared of Utah. Like you said, though, I think excuse me. A healthy Mike Conley is a really good player and can really help your offense a lot. And I think the trend right now in basketball is shooting threes. The more threes you shoot, the more points.
It's been the trend. Welcome to the 21st century.
I know, but it's like you said, they're increasing. The Clippers had 30 at halftime the other day. Like we're jacking up threes, and I think you have to in this league. Like the long two is no longer. They don't want you taking the long two anymore. It's either a three or you get to the line. I mean, the perimeter game, the only guy that I like watching is Kawhi. Like he's the only like real back to the basket perimeter player that can knock down the 15-footer all day long. And it's okay for Kawhi to do it, but you'd rather Mike Conley take those threes than take it to the rack and get injured again.
Like, I don't like the DeMar DeRozan erasure, but I appreciate the Kawhi love.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
I don't think I don't like the DeMar DeRozan erasure.
Okay. I just think we don't watch enough.
I lost your audio. Sorry, we don't watch enough of Utah. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I think in order for me, I mean, I did watch the game last night. Again, they look nice. Gobert had a double-double, the $200 million man. He's tough in the post. He's going to give any big like kind of an issue, but I'm not worried about them. I'm not.
No, because Kerr said they're trying to win a championship right now, and I think they're capable of doing so. They're where we were 3 or 4 years ago, which is a team that I'm sure puts the living fear into Clippers fans, the Warriors. So that's what Kerr had to say about them. They're very similar, he said, to the Golden State Warriors 3 or 4 years ago.
I can see it. I can see him saying that. But I can see him saying I'm not. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to leave you on this last question. We don't have to get into the Nuggets and Mavs. I'm going to leave you on this last question. LeBron James, do you think he's going to be the MVP of the season?
Drew asked the same question on our pod the other day. And I think LeBron can win MVP every single year. He should have 9 MVPs, 10 MVPs right now. The way he's playing in his 18th season, what he's doing, the way he's shooting the best he's shot in his career at 36 years old. I mean, I want people to sit back and realize that this is going to be over at some point, and LeBron will not be playing in the NBA anymore. We're missing this guy is so amazing in everything, and it's hard for me because I've been a LeBron fan my whole life, and when he came to the Lakers, it was really tough for me. And I liked everybody. I liked Rondo, I love LeBron. It was really hard for me to like these players on the Lakers, but what he's doing is phenomenal. And most likely, I mean, obviously, if they win the West, you should be MVP. He should have been MVP last season, 100%. And I hate that
I disagree with that.
Totally should have got. They won the championship.
Yeah, but you don't get an MVP for what you do in the playoffs. It's voted on prior to the playoffs starting, prior to the bubble. So you can't the Bucks, faltered in the bubble, but that's not what the MVP was about. It was about the regular season, and Giannis was that. But until that changes, these are the rules. They had to include things that start, and they voted, I think, prior to the bubble starting, if I'm not mistaken. So how do you include anything else when you don't know the future?
I do think it's still early to call MVP.
Oh, it's so early. It's literally we're in the first month. This is my early, but my thinking is a couple of things play. I think narrative plays a huge factor. Here's the thing: Giannis is not winning it again.
No,
I don't think Giannis is winning it again. I don't think the Mavs are going to be good enough. Their record wise, I don't think that they're going to be there. Jokic, I don't think the Nuggets record wise are going to be there. I also think that there's just been a lot of talk, and I think narrative plays a giant factor in this. People say that narrative-based voters. Literally everybody's a narrative-based voter. And I think the Nuggets, with their defense being as trash as it is, despite him just being this like amazing point center and just doing things at an insane rate, right? Like he's phenomenal. He's so much fun to watch. Like everyone needs to be watching Nuggets games. To me, they're probably the most fun team I think I have watching outside of the Raptors. And I love Jamal Murray and I love Nikola Jokic. I'm not a big MPJ fan, but that's for stuff outside of the basketball court.
I know. He's so cocky. He's so cocky. But did you see DeAndre Ayton like fanboy over Jokic last night? Like they had back-to-back.
No, wait, what? DeAndre?
Oh, they both fanboyed each other.
No, but I mean, DeAndre Ayton and the Suns are another team that I absolutely think are a lot of fun, and they're going to be fun in the West. And obviously not contender level, but I legit think that they're going to be really good this season. But yeah, so who else? Like to me, it's just like okay, so we're taking Giannis out. I think Joel Embiid is like probably his biggest opponent right now. My thing about the Embiid stuff is like, who do I think? I just like, as much as I want to believe in Embiid, I'm like, are you going to be able to do this in this truncated season with as many, tight and back-to-back games you're going to have? The Sixers already have postponed some games. They're going to have to make it up in the back end. How is this all going to fit? How many games is Embiid going to play? Is his body going to hold up? I have more questions about that, which is crazy to say because Embiid is like a decade younger than LeBron James. But I have way more questions about that for Embiid than I do for LeBron, which I think is a point in LeBron's favor considering their ages. So to me, it's like, okay, so if it's not, and the Brooklyn Nets are all cannibalizing each other's votes. So
I think Embiid, this is the version of Embiid that we've been waiting for, though.
Oh, he's been phenomenal. He's been so good.
He's in shape. He looks great. The guy can do it all. But I'm with you on what she's. Definitely right now, LeBron.
So then it's just LeBron because I personally don't think that people like the Clippers enough to have one of the two vote for them right now.
That makes me so upset because Paul George should be in that conversation.
But I don't think he will be. I think he'll be in the conversation. I think he'll finish top 3 in MVP voting. I think we're gonna get that again from him. I don't think he'll be the MVP. I think if it's going to be LeBron, if it's going to be between one of those two guys, especially because like the Lakers and the Clippers are going to be right there in terms of records. It's like, unless the Clippers have a substantially better record than the Lakers, I just can't see how it goes to a Clipper over LeBron James.
Well, I mean, again, Imman, back to COVID, like say Paul George and Kawhi, they came positive, right? So now we're talking 14 days that these guys are out and we're on our longest 7-game road trip right now. And say we drop all 7 of those games or say we go 1-6 or something like that. This can really affect the record moving forward. And same thing, if LeBron and AD go down for 14 days, what's that going to do? That changes the whole landscape of things. So we have to keep that in mind as well.
For sure. The season's fake. I completely agree. I think that's what you were trying to say because that's how I feel. Season's fake. All this stuff is nonsense.
Or Imman, you have the reason why the Lakers haven't gotten COVID yet is because everybody's playing by the freaking rules, right? They don't want to piss off LeBron James.
I don't know how I feel about that because you can also get it from, I mean, if you're forcing these guys to play with each other, and we've seen people have to be pulled from games because, before a game starts, but at least with Steph Curry there, he had to be pulled once a game started. You're putting these guys in a situation where you're inviting COVID into their lives where they could have just been at home. So to me, COVID, I'm kidding, it's not. But to me, it's like, let me not put that on myself. But I personally don't think that like it's about following the rules. I don't think that the guys who haven't gotten it are just being better about. I mean, some of them sure are, but I think the NBA is just risking everybody right now. You're talking about traveling across the country and playing in these games. And yeah, they're like, oh, we're masks on the bench, but you're banging bodies with these guys and all of this other stuff. And there's plane rides and there's food and you're inviting COVID into these guys' lives. So it's going to affect every single team in the NBA. And that's just going to make the season fake. As long as
the Raptors are having a hard time with that, being away from. I said the team that's affected the most is the Raptors because they're away from home and now they're in Tampa and they've got to have it's got to be so tough for those guys right now. So I'm giving it up for them. That's got to be even harder than having to stay quarantined with your family, but at home. Being in Tampa from Toronto's got to suck.
Yep. Yeah. Some guys are still living out of the hotel. Haven't found like permanent housing there.
Right.
Some of these guys have kids in schools. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do you pull them? How do you move your entire family? So it's been a mess for them. I can't imagine what they're going through. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I love it. I want to do it again anytime.
All right, perfect. We went, honestly, this is my longest episode, so that was perfect.
I enjoy talking, Imman, so I can talk basketball at all times. So if